Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to tackle something really universal, maybe even a bit painful for, well, most of us, I think.
Yeah.
It's that gap,
Yeah.
between knowing what's actually good for you, what helps you reach your goals, and then, well, doing something totally different.
Ah, right. That knowing-doing gap. Super frustrating. Your head knows, but your actions just don't follow.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're digging into some material from a chapter that zooms right in on this. It's called The Knowing-Doing Gap. Why we avoid doing what's best for us and how to conquer resistance for good.
Okay. Sounds promising.
So our mission here is basically to unpack this chapter together. We want to pull out the main ideas, get a handle on why the source thinks we do this self-sabotage thing, and really importantly, how it suggests we can actually overcome it.
And we're sticking just to what's in this text, right? No outside stuff.
Yep, just the source material provided.
Okay, let's jump in then. So the source defines this gap pretty simply, actually. It just says it's knowing the best thing to do, but doing something else anyway. Straightforward. And it mentions Jeffrey Pfeffer and Robert Sutton gave it that name, knowing-doing gap.
Right, I think I've heard of their book, The Knowing-Doing Gap, something, something.
How smart companies turn knowledge into action. Yeah, that's the one. So it's not just a personal struggle, it shows up in organizations too.
That's interesting. But the chapter also makes it clear this feeling, this gap, isn't new, is it? It takes other forms.
Oh, absolutely not new. That's what's kind of wild. You see echoes of it everywhere. The ancient Greeks had a word for it, akrasia.
Akrasia, like weakness of will.
Exactly. And then Zen Buddhists talk about resistance. And, in our daily lives, like the source says, it's just procrastination or feeling stuck, that kind of thing.
So it's really a fundamental human thing across time and cultures.
Wow.
But the chapter pivots here, right? It says something important about knowing what to do.
It does. It kind of says, look, we often know what's good for us. Eat better, exercise, start that project, have the hard conversation. We get that intellectually.
Yeah, the knowledge part isn't usually the problem.
Right. The real challenge, according to this text, isn't piling up more knowledge. It's understanding why we choose the other thing anyway.
Okay, so why do we? What's the root cause here?
Well, the source says we need to understand the fabric of resistance to kind of unstitch it. So the focus shifts from the what to the why. Why the resistance?
And digging into that why, that fabric, the source points pretty strongly towards one main thing, doesn't it?
It does. Comfort. It says most of them, the reasons for self-sabotage have something to do with comfort.
Comfort. Okay, that resonates. But how does that work?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. The source links it to both modern society and our deep-seated biology.
How so?
Think about it. Society basically screams at us that comfort, ease, security, that equals the good life, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's marketed that way.
And then biologically, we're wired to seek comfort. For thousands of years, comfort meant survival. Less danger, less risk.
Ah, okay. So that old programming is still running, even when comfort today might actually mean like stagnation instead of survival.
Precisely. And the source points out this drive isn't just physical. It bleeds into our thinking, our emotions. We want intellectual comfort, so we avoid tough ideas. We want emotional comfort, so we avoid feeling vulnerable.
Wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So if comfort is the trap, how do we get out? The source must offer a way forward.
It does. It argues the key isn't to fight comfort head on, but to change how we see it. Shift our perception.
Shift perception. How? What's the technique?
Okay, so the specific method it lays out is about changing your focus. Instead of dwelling on how uncomfortable it might be to do the thing.
Yeah, like going to the gym or starting the report.
Exactly. You deliberately focus on the discomfort you will definitely face if you don't do it. You force yourself to really look at the alternative.
The alternative, meaning the consequences of inaction.
Yes. And the source is pretty blunt about what that looks like. It doesn't hold back. It says, letting this gap run wild can leave you a shell of the person you intended to be.
Oof! A shell of the person you intended to be. That's stark. What else does it warn about?
Well, it lists quite a few things. It can wreck your most intimate, passionate relationships.
Wow.
It stops you getting that daily stuff done that you need for bigger goals. It keeps you stuck in this manic state of indecision, just spinning your wheels.
Manic state of indecision. Yeah, I think we've all felt that. It really paints a grim picture of staying stuck.
It does, and that's the point, I think. The strategy is to confront that potential future. Face the big picture of what happens if you don't bridge the gap.
It actually gives you questions to ask yourself, right? To make it real.
Yes, really specific, quite confronting questions. They're designed to make that cost of inaction feel, tangible right now.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, like, how will you quantifiably measure this year? What will you have done?
Quantifiably. Okay.
Or the one you mentioned earlier. How many hours will you have wasted? That one hits hard.
Yeah, it does.
No.
What else?
It asks you to imagine living today, like just an average day, on repeat for the rest of your life.
Okay.
And then asks, where would you end up? What would you accomplish? How happy would you be? What relationships will you have fostered?
That's powerful, putting it on repeat like that.
And there's a really specific one about relationships, too. Will you be looking back knowing you likely damn well missed out on what could have been the love of your life because you weren't ready?
Ouch. That ready thing.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. And it also asked about your passions, What about the hours you could have been playing music or writing or painting or whatever Evering? Where will those have gone?
So the idea is that feeling the potential pain of not doing it becomes stronger than the fear of doing it.
That seems to be the core mechanic, yeah. Making the discomfort of inaction just way more real and present than the discomfort of action.
And this connects to that readiness idea you just mentioned. The source tackles that head on too, doesn't it?
It really does. It flat out states, you will never be ready for the things that matter.
Never be ready. That's quite a statement.
It is. And it argues that waiting to feel ready, that's exactly what makes the knowing during gap wider. It feeds the resistance.
So waiting is the problem, not the solution.
Pretty much. The source gets that taking action, doing the work, stretching yourself, being vulnerable, it is uncomfortable. It acknowledges that.
Right.
But it says that discomfort is never more comfortable than going your whole life without the things you really want.
That reframing is huge. The discomfort of doing versus the discomfort of lifelong regret.
Exactly. And it suggests a lot of our anxiety actually comes from avoiding the work, from sitting idle with the fear, rather than from the work itself.
That makes sense. The anticipation is often worse.
Totally. And it offers a bit of hope here, too, saying that often the things we build up in our heads as being awful aren't as hard or as trying as we chalk them up to be.
Sometimes they can even be good.
Yeah. It says they can actually end up being fun and rewarding and expressions of who we really are, which is a nice thought.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Don't wait to be ready. Face the discomfort of inaction. But how do you actually start? If you're feeling stuck, what's the practical first move?
Ah, right. The practical step. The source lands on something really simple, taking small steps.
Small steps. The classic advice, but how does it frame it here?
It's presented as the way to break that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Hmm.
You don't need the whole plan, just the very next tiny action.
Just do one thing.
Yeah, that one small action starts building momentum. And crucially, it proves to your brain, hey, see, that wasn't so terrible. It lowers the anticipated fear for next time.
And there's that great line in there about acting versus thinking.
Oh, yeah, that's a keeper. It's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking rather than think your way into a new way of acting.
I like that. Thinking gets you stuck in the weeds. Action cuts through.
Exactly. So the advice is just do one little thing today and let the momentum build. Simple as that.
Just start somewhere, anywhere.
Pretty much. And the chapter kind of closes with this interesting thought about acknowledging, almost thanking, that inner part of you.
What inner part?
The part that knows there's something more for you, something bigger. The part that nudges you, even uncomfortably, towards growth and away from maybe too much comfort.
Like recognizing that little voice pushing you isn't the enemy. It's actually trying to help you reach your potential.
Yeah, something like that. Being okay with less comfort in service of more growth. Acknowledging that drive.
Okay, wow. So let's try and wrap this up. We've covered a lot from this chapter. We started with the problem itself, right? The knowing-doing gap.
Yeah, the gap between head and hands,
Yeah.
acrasia, resistance, procrastination, whatever you call it.
And the source argues a big reason for it is our deep-seated desire for comfort, amplified by society and our own biology.
Comfort as the main barrier.
And then we got into the core technique, shifting your focus, really feeling the discomfort of not acting, the cost of inaction.
Looking hard at the alternative. Yeah. And those consequences the source laid out were pretty serious potential damage to your sense of self, your relationships, your goals.
Definitely sobering. And confronting that alternative using those specific, challenging questions the text suggests.
Making it feel real, then debunking that myth of waiting to feel ready.
Because you'll never be truly ready for the important stuff.
Exactly. And waiting just digs the hole deeper. The discomfort of acting is less than the pain of lifelong what-ifs.
And finally, the practical way out. Just start small. One little thing.
Act your way into thinking differently. Build momentum. That's the path forward it offers.
So maybe the final thought to leave you, the listener, with is drawn right from that core idea.
Go on.
Take a second right now, maybe, and really picture that alternative future. The one where the knowing doing gap wins. Feel what that might actually feel like.
Let that discomfort sink in a bit.
Yeah. And then let that feeling be the nudge, the fuel, for whatever the very next smallest possible step is for you. Something you can do, like today.
What's that one tiny thing? Just identify it.
Just consider that. What's
Yeah.
the first little step